Okay, welcome back to Novel Bootcamp. We are here on week 8 of 12, so that means that we are getting towards the end. This is the course that will take you to from idea to finished draft of your book by the end of the year. So we're going to be wrapping those books up in like the first or second week of December. Hopefully you're all making good progress and you're passing those midpoints and you're starting to make, build that momentum up towards your ending. All right, let's look at our overview for today. And if you haven't yet signed up, of course, we have those links that you can access in the chat by typing !bootcamp to any chat channel. There they are right there. Not sure I shared that from last time. So you can click on any of those and just type to sign your name up for upcoming sessions of feature, pilot, or novel. Those are all going to be wrapping up by the end of the year. Okay, here's where we are. So week 8, action and set pieces. Just a couple classes left. Mood, tone, and genre next week. Plot twist, mystery, and suspense on the 15th. Pressure Cooker, which is the latter half of Act 2 on the week 11 on the 22nd. And then finally wrapping up with self-editing and endings on the 29th. Wrapping up that draft by the end of that week, we'll have you finished with the script by December 6th. Manuscripts, not scripts. We've come a long way. Hopefully everyone's meeting their word count goals. We'll do a check-in to ask, how is your project going? And did you meet your word count goals this week? Any questions or issues? And then what have you been reading? Okay, we'll start with Kura. Are you there? Hi, you want to tell us how your project is going? Okay, typing in the chat says I've reached 3,000 words. Great. Okay, not sure what your total is that you're aiming for or what you're writing, so feel free to share more information about that if you want to, or any questions or issues you're having. And also share what you've been reading this week. Don't know your total. Okay, well, we can go over how to assess that today if you need to. All right, feel free to continue typing to fill out any more of that information there if you can. Oh, thank you. You've shared what you've been reading. To Kill a Shadow by Catherine Quinn. Thank you for that. Let's hear from Lou.
Hello.
Hi.
So let's see. I am working on my project, which is good. I am still, I'm kind of simultaneously working on several new chapters, so I don't really have like one under my belt. But I'm still happy with the fact that I am writing. And yeah, as far as progress goes, I wonder if maybe I'll have to adjust the goalposts a little bit in terms of like finishing it by December 6th. But yeah, and in terms of what I'm reading, I actually so I'm writing a fan fiction, and so I started reading some fan fiction as well, which I haven't like touched in over I'd say a year. So I think that's also helping a little bit.
Okay, can we go back a second? You said you're not sure if you're going to finish by the end of the year. Is that because there's some problem or something standing in the way that we can address today?
Well, try to be realistic because I actually just ended up getting a new job, and there's a bit of a learning curve for it. So it's just like a time issue thing, as well as kind of, I haven't written it like in a schedule type structure for several months, so I'm kind of like getting back into it, and I think it's a slower process. But I'm still like very happy with the fact that I actually started writing again. So it's a mixed bag, I would say.
Okay, yep, all good. If it's just life or schedule or job getting in the way, then not much we can do about that, but happy to assess if there's some
Yeah.
actual story issue in the way.
Yes, thanks for taking.
Yeah, thank you for that. Luke, go ahead.
I'm mainly been working on screenplays, which has been going okay. I'm getting pages, several to few pages per day pretty consistently. And I've been reading, I mean, I read that script for Advanced Lab that I thought was really good. Um, and I've also been reading Brother to Demons, Brother to Gods, this pulp 70s novel I'm taking copious notes on because I'm going to try to adapt it into a screenplay at some point. Um, and I've been polishing up chapters from my Weird West novel here and there. I haven't done that this week, but I'm planning to go back and actually write new chapters. I think I'm just gonna try to dive in to the novel again. Um, what else did I read? I started reading Usual Suspects and um, looking at my list here. I did not read Monster, though that is a good script. I read it a long time ago. Uh, I do recommend Monster by Patty Jenkins. Um, I think that was really it. Just the usual suspects and Exquisite for the Advanced Lab.
Great. Thank you for that. All right. Megan, go ahead.
Writing is coming along well. Oh, one second, let me get some cold water. Writing is coming along well. Added 2 chapters that I kind of knew needed to be there, but I wasn't sure where in the flow they were supposed to fit, and I figured that out. So 2 new chapters went in, and I am at the halfway point now with the ripple effect, including having added 2 chapters. It looks like it's going to be up to 70,000 now with the added chapters and detail that has been put in as a result of adding the hero's journey to the milieu of different plot and character arcs. So yeah, just been going through and making those alterations, and then also I've been not so much reading but listening to Fourth Wing, because at the end of the day my eyes are tired, and so my reading is listening these days.
That counts.
And I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I've always said audiobooks count as reading. I don't know why some people think they don't.
Okay. Well, I am reading Fourth Wing in that case. I'm enjoying it very much.
Great.
I think sure I think I gotta stop. At some point I stopped analyzing it and started enjoying the story, so that's kind of good. Early on I was analyzing it as it was happening, and then at some point the analyzation stopped and the story caught me, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, I've heard that's one of those books that if you look at the world building too carefully, you'll start to see stuff that doesn't actually make that much sense. But if you just kind of like take it as it comes, then it might go down a little easier. Thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
Let's hear from Vicky.
Hi. I am writing my chapters right now. I've decided I'm going to divide them because I cannot do both POVs at the same time. So I divided the POVs of one of my characters and I'll do them all in one like journey, and then I'll do the other character's POV since they're separated most of the time. So I can get them to a certain point in which they're going to find each other, and those I can do them together once I finish it.
Right. Great. All right. Thank you for that. Anything you're reading you want to share?
Um, Yeah, I've been reading, but I don't know if you'll know those books because they're independent and they're from here. So I am reading, but I'm not reading like commercial stuff. At least things that are well known outside of Latin America.
Okay, all good. Thank you for that. Joyce, do you want to tell us how your project's going? We're just wrapping up with check-ins and you just popped in.
Sorry, I'm late. I wasn't watching the clock.
Oh, okay.
So I finished all of my edits. I kind of did a kind of not quite a major rewrite, but I had a lot of things wrong. So I'm finally able to let that go. I'm moving into chapter 7 now. I think I'm right at 18,500 word, 18,013 words. So I probably only wrote about 1,000 new words to, this week, but I kind of cleaned up a lot of old words, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And then I just started a new book called The Room Next Door. And I'm only on the first chapter, so I can't really go into too much about it.
All right. All good. Do you feel like you're on track for the book?
I am off track. I wanted to be done in October, so I've kind of switched it to Christmas.
Okay.
So in that regard, I am on track. So,
That's
but I
fine.
definitely have to pick up the pace. So
Yeah, the goal for the boot camp was always to wrap up by the end of the year. So you're still on track as far as I know.
yes.
Thank you for that, Joyce. I think that's everyone. Did I miss anyone? That looks like everyone. Okay. So let's get into action scenes and set pieces, which is the topic for today. So whether you're writing or reading stuff in the action adventure genre or not, there's always going to be scenes of, or not always, there's often in most books, there's at least a couple scenes of some kind of frantic physical activity. That is how we can define action. It's more than just characters shooting guns at each other. It's more than just car chases and things like that. It's more than just violence. Action refers to frantic physical action. What are some other examples of what that might be besides just fighting?
Fleeing.
Training?
Somebody I heard fleeing first. Okay, so escaping, chase sequences, sure. Training might be an action scene potentially. Usually we need some kind of opposition for training, but I could see like a scrimmage or a skirmish or something like that being an action sequence for sure. What else?
Crisis management.
Crisis management. Okay, great. Like what, for example?
Like the mission control in Apollo 13. That's an action scene, even though it's just people talking in headsets and passing paperwork and stuff.
Yeah, if it involves if someone somewhere is involved in frantic physical action, then yeah, they're whether that's your character that is in our POV, or it could be the character that is just involved in the scene. Like if your character is talking someone through defusing a bomb, something like this. In the mission control case, it might be the control room that's instructing the astronauts what to do. But the astronauts in that case are the ones who have to actually do the frantic physical stuff. So in order for it to be action, it needs to be physical. It's not going to be action if it's just characters thinking about or discussing or talking about stuff. We need to have them actually competing for a tangible goal. And usually an action scene requires some sense of opposition as well. That may be another character, or that could be opposition in the form of a really tall cliff that your character's trying to climb, or the weather over the course of a 3-month long journey, or something like that. So you can define this term antagonist quite in a lot of different ways to create a lot of variety of types of scenes. So to begin with, let's start by do you guys have any scenes that really stand out from books that you've read before that you feel were especially exciting or scary, or what stood out about that scene to you?
I could go
Go ahead.
if that works.
Yep.
You read Lee Child, The Killing Floor Up. There's another Lee Child novel that there's a scene in a cave that's incredibly claustrophobic. And I don't like enclosed spaces to begin with. So reading that scene and how claustrophobic it felt, and the the whole sort of worming his way out of this cave and you know, following, I believe it was a rodent or something. It was horrible. It was horrible.
Yeah,
So
the set piece
I think I
play on
split
like so yeah, sometimes a set piece will play on a really specific fear or phobia or source of tension. If you watch the Final Destination movies, pretty much every set piece is themed around one kind of like accident that could go wrong or one sort of like mundane fear around dangers that are all around us all the time. Also, I wanted to shout out Dislocation Space by Garth Nix if you're into claustrophobia stuff, which is a short story that I think we read a part of a couple like in a novel boot camp like a year or two ago. But if anyone missed it, the premise is that it's about a Soviet sniper that's being held in a gulag in the 1950s. And she is sort of being groomed to take a spot in a special program that is intended to explore a crack between different dimensions. And so the finale sequence of the book is her just sort of like trying to squeeze her way through a really tight space, which is kind of like a portal between different worlds. So that was a really creative, a cool thing to do that would be really difficult to portray in film or TV. What else? Go ahead.
Two. I'll start with the less exciting one. Though it's pretty exciting. There's a book called Ill Wind, sort of about an oil apocalypse. It's hard to explain. But the build up to the apocalypse is this oil tanker, and it's like a series of errors and like people rushing around trying to like stop the ship from crashing. And it's very like action heavy. There's multiple sort of like factions involved too. And the other one was this book called Micro by Michael Crichton, and it has scientists that get shrunk down to microscopic proportions in a like 4x4 patch of dirt in a Hawaiian rainforest preserve. And the one of the big action set pieces is they fight a giant centipede. It's like a boss battle
I
in
love
a
it.
Michael Crichton book.
I love little tiny people stories where people get shrunken down and have to do shrunken stuff. That's
There's
quite good.
cool stuff in that book. There's like nanobots that can like slice your internals and kill you like without being detected and stuff. It's interesting.
But nanobots, if you're tiny, would just be bots, wouldn't it? That's just like a big
Yeah.
old robot for you, or a swarm of them.
Exactly.
Okay.
Um,
Thank
also
you.
know way too much about nematodes from that book.
Okay. Yeah. You read Michael Crichton, you'll learn about all kinds of scientific things that can kill you. Does my audio sound okay to everybody else, or is it Luke mentioned it sounds choppy? Does it how does it sound to anyone?
Got a burble.
Say that again.
Got a little burble to it.
Got a burble to it.
It's got a little burble to it. It's not super smooth.
Okay. Does
I can
everybody
hear you clearly, but it's not smooth.
Okay. Good to know. I'm not sure how to fix it if that's the case. I'm not sure what I'm hoping to gain, but at least I know it's not just Luke. Okay, so if Nacho's not here, is he? No, he's not. Okay, when Nacho,
Lab.
yeah, it's still going. It's the endless lab.
We're still arguing over that script.
Still that one preface. Yeah. Okay. Well, when Nacho gets here, we'll have some ideas how to maybe adjust the stream. Unless I could just change at least my
Another scene we're talking about favorite scenes, right? And another scene that comes to mind, which has always been a favorite scene and has a weird and different kind of tension than your sort of normal combat scene, is the scene between Paul Atreides and Jameis, where he first where he's challenged to enter the Fremen, and he's much younger than the adversary, but he knows he's gonna win. He knows he's better, and it's the realization that he can't just better the man, that he's going to have to kill him. That actually creates the tension with character, the realization that you can't just win the bout, you're actually going to have to take someone's life.
Right, and it's also
that
omniscient.
source of tension rather than who will win. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so and Dune is also written in omniscience. So in every action scene, we can hear everybody's thoughts, both combatants, both fighters, and all the observers as well. So any any action scene can become a lot more complicated the more POVs you include. Gotta be careful with omniscient. Okay, thank you for those ideas. So obviously we're talking about action that can be much more than just characters fighting. You can do certain things in action scenes in books that you actually could not do really in a movie or show. I'm thinking even of these sequences that the game developer for this game called Metal Gear Solid 3 really talked about reading and basing this one boss fight off of, where these sort of sniper battles that would take place over the course of days or weeks. I think this was in the Kosovo War. Is the novels that he was referring to would have these scenes where snipers were set up on opposite mountainsides just looking for each other for days at a time, and they're all camouflaged. So it's really frantic physical action, but over a much longer scope. Or you might imagine in a novel too, you could write about a whole war taking place over just a single chapter in which every individual paragraph might be covering different battles, right? So you can compress time. And the way that you manage time is completely different in a movie or show versus a book. You can much more easily feature action that stretches over a longer period in a novel. Hi, Nacho. I'm glad you finally got out of advanced lab. It looked like the lab that would never end. We're talking action.
Yeah, we were.
Good.
I was just saying, yeah, we were discussing you know, a interesting, very ambitious script.
Right. Thank you for that. All right. So we're looking at actions and set pieces today, and the various things that make them click together and work, right? The action might take place over the course of just one unbroken sequence, like a fist fight, or it might be something longer term, like a series of battles for control of a city or something like that. You can portray that as one scene in a book. In a movie, it would be very difficult unless you do a montage to sort of portray that as one scene. So be thinking of all the different ways that you can actually use the text to prose medium to achieve different effects here. Regardless, though, no matter what the sort of time frame or walls around the action set piece are, they're going to have their own sort of mini 3-act structure, as almost everything does. Any kind of event has a 3-act structure because every event has a beginning, a middle, and an end. But like I would be thinking in terms of that beginning, middle, end, when you're coming up with these action sequences and trying to figure out what actual tangible progress is made, what is the effect by the end of it? So what changes in terms of the external action? Does your character get what they wanted or not? Do they get closer to their goal, or do they have to lose progress from that goal? And last, at the end of every scene, whether it's a action scene, dialogue scene, romance scene, we are always looking to clarify a couple key things. Somebody name one of the things that we always want to make really clear by the end of a scene, whether it's action or any other kind.
The emotional change
Yeah.
of the main character or the characters involved, POV characters, I guess.
Yes, so emotional change and also relationship, which are often very connected, of course. So that means that every scene that your character, if they survive an action sequence, or if they just get through another day at work, in order for that to feel like that's worthy of being in the book and like that is fulfilling a functional role, we kind of have to know not only what has been gained or lost on an external level, but what has been gained or lost or what progress has been made on the internal level as well. You'll run into issues where you have these brick wall scenes where nothing changes, your character learns nothing, gains nothing, and their tactics don't adjust. That is called a brick wall scene. That's a big problem if you have like more than a couple of those. I don't know if there's a number on it, but like the audience gets very frustrated very quickly with character not making any progress at all, not changing up their tactics, and I often suggest that either the wall, if they keep running into walls, the walls have to start breaking, or the character does. Meaning that you could always do a sequence where your character is desperately trying to get past the enemy lines, but their soldiers just can't do it. So we're going to start to watch now a different kind of progress. The new type of progress being the emotional change, the character losing hope, your character starting to wonder if he should run away, if he should quit the war, whatever it is, right? So we're always tracking action set pieces and sequences on the internal and external levels. Hope that's really clear. So we can always be gaining progress or losing progress, and either one is okay. Either one can be interesting, even if the whole book is your characters just losing again and again and again and again. You guys think of any stories like that where it's pretty much just the characters losing?
Hitchhiker's Guide, kind of,
Yeah. Okay.
with the later books.
Yeah. There's some absurd moments in there too, where sometimes you're just like, I'm not even sure if they won or if they lost, or if we sort of just blew up the rules by the end of that scene. So it's hard to even say if we won or lost. Has a lot of that kind of like uh, over the top surreal comedy. What else?
The
Any
whale and the
else?
petunias
Okay.
definitely lost. By the whale and the petunias, they definitely lost.
Okay. Is that a reference to something in the first book? I don't remember a whale in petunias.
First Hitchhiker's Guide, yes.
Okay, thank you for that. You might have to remind us what that actually refers to. Or another example of
I'll
that.
tell you real quick what it is.
Okay.
They activate the infinite improbability without putting coordinates in, and a whale and a bowl of and a pot of petunias appear above a planet and basically plummet to their deaths.
Oh, right. Okay. So that is a result of this machine.
Definitely a loss from them.
Right.
Definitely lost the whale and the petunias.
I would agree. You can also look at certain war stories like All Quiet on the Western Front or Dunkirk or things like this as basically just the characters losing every battle and just barely surviving. So a lot of war stories just feel like the characters only losing ground again and again and again. Chase-based stories often also are kind of just like the goal is always get away and the character always fails because the person chasing them always catches up to them. So we are looking at the different ways that are the different types of development that we're getting through action. Not only is your character advancing towards their goal or perhaps losing progress from it, but they're also altering relationships and they are planning for what's going to happen next. They're processing what just happened to them. And we always have to keep their kind of emotional life in mind, much more so than we do in other mediums because we're inside the characters' heads. So when you're writing action of various frantic physical feats, then we have to kind of take into account certain elements like, well, how much ammo does your character actually have? How tired are they really? How hurt are they? Is there anything else going on that is affecting how they might approach the scene? We think of invulnerable heroes as being kind of boring for the most part. They don't have to be. There's certain ways to write these superhuman characters that always win and keep them interesting. And what might some of those ways be? How can you keep a story interesting if the character always wins and has superior physical skills to everyone else?
The consequences of them winning.
Sure. That's one way to do it. You mount up the consequences of them winning. Every victory comes with some sort of setback or some kind of other cost. What else?
You find out that at the end, the victory is not the victory you thought it was, like in Blade Runner.
Okay, yep, could be that. But when we get to the end, then we realize that the victory was not what we thought or not what it was cracked up to be. That might save you at the end, but I guess when we're reading through the story, like on a scene by scene level, what's going to keep us going? At least there's some sort of other
Well,
uncertainty.
you have the quest to kill all of the replicants that he's been assigned, and then you have his growing doubt about what the reality of that entails until the very end, and when you have that sort of ultimate scene.
Sure. Yeah, you can have it.
And it's I don't want to totally give it away, but it's a great scene, both in the film and in the book.
So yeah, your character might be re-examining their motives as the story goes on. Even as they win again and again, they might start to ask, well, what am I actually winning? What is this actually for? And should I even be doing this? The fact that they're winning all the time could lead to an internal dilemma. Lou suggests adding some sort of other uncertainty as well. Okay, so that you might need some other threat or something besides just the enemy that they're facing. That might be a ticking clock of some kind. That could be your hero. They win every fight, but they have to choose which fights they're going to be in because they can't be everywhere at once. That could also be something like we're running out of time. Like like we can only do one battle a year or something like that. So your character only has so many battles in them that they can choose to fight before they can no longer do it, or they have to drop out of the war, or their term is up, or something like that, right? So we can add a different source of pressure. You can also ask your characters to make choices. Like if they always win, just give them two scenarios and say you can only pick one thing. That's kind of the superhero example. Have you guys seen something like that in a superhero comic or a superhero movie?
Doesn't the Dark Knight do that?
Yeah. What's the scene?
you have to choose to save oh man, what is her name? Rachel or Harvey Dent.
Great. So the bad guys have kidnapped two of the hero's friends and loved ones, like his love interest, his person he wants to marry, and then a friend of his who the city really needs. And now, even though Batman pretty much wins every fight, not everyone, but most of them, we are asking him now. You have to. It's a different kind of conflict, right? It's a choice more so than it is about can you punch the bad guy hard enough. We know they can punch the bad guy hard, but when you think of Superman, for instance, Superman stories are almost always going to be about him making those choices. Like we have a giant robot destroying the city, and we have Lois Lane in trouble, and we have Jimmy Olsen hanging off a cliff. You can only go to one of those places. Of course, he sometimes does, through the course of the story, unlock some new power or ability or something that allows him to do all three, and that's part of just like the puzzle work of writing those sort of things, making that still feel satisfying, even though you've given them that impossible choice. Sometimes you just also have them, they have to make the choice and they just suffer the consequences. Like when Bruce he goes to try to save Rachel, but he doesn't manage to do it. She just dies. Middle of a blockbuster, quadruple A action movie. The main love interest dies. It was pretty unusual to do that. It still is. Like that is still a hard hitting sequence that nobody saw coming. So you can really get a lot out of your characters when you test them. You're testing them in different ways, and even if they always succeed and they win, even if they're hyper competent in action terms, and they kind of have to be in certain genres, that doesn't mean that they aren't always on the back foot. We typically want the journey to be getting harder and harder, and the character to be getting tested more. And every victory comes with both setbacks and also it might come with a clue to the next action set piece your character needs to do. But they're always going to be just a little late. They're always going to be a little behind. We don't want your hero to be overwhelming, like an overwhelming force to the villain. Action writing requires your character to be facing a difficult uphill journey. If it's getting easier as the story goes on, something's way off. Okay. Any questions on this so far?
Well, I guess technically you're right. Yeah, the threat does escalate in Sentai, but Sentai is kind of we're overpowered. We beat up the bad guys every week. I guess they keep it interesting by adding new toys and powers and abilities and this kind of thing. The power creep.
The power creep is pretty crazy in Sentai, but I mean, then again, is Fast and Furious a Sentai series? Almost. Like that's
Kind
Western
of,
media. And I wouldn't be surprised if they made a Megazord out of their cars in the next Fast and Furious movie. Like they just might. They've been to space. Like what's next? They've raced.
Yeah.
They crashed a car into a nuclear submarine. Like they will do anything. The power creep is absurd. People can't be hurt by cars, and the heroes at least cannot be hurt by cars. Cars are almost magic in Fast and Furious world.
Also think that's just part of the appeal of the genre. Is like, look at these like invincible heroes.
Yeah.
Like nothing could ever beat them. Like no matter how crazy the threat is, they're gonna find a way to defeat it.
But we have to pretend. And I think that like the audience knows that the heroes are gonna win. We all know. But the dance that you do with them is you say, but not this time. This time they couldn't possibly. And it's like episode 200 of 500. We're like, okay, if you guys insist, they can never win now. The world's doomed. How are they going to do it? That sort of becomes the fun, is like every week convincing the audience that you're going to, in a TV show every week, or in a novel, every chapter, convincing the audience that this time they can't win. This time, how the heck are they going to pull it off? And then they do in some surprising kind of way that makes us go, oh, that's brilliant. And there's plenty of books like this, plenty of long-running detective series are just like this. The hero always wins, but we always have to sort of pretend like it's not a foregone conclusion. Any questions about those ideas? How can bookkeeping be any fun? How can we're keeping track of things like ammo? What kind of fun things could happen if your character runs out of ammo?
They pick up the gun and hit the enemy with it.
There you go. Okay, sure. Gun martial arts. Now we have to whack the enemy and change the way that we're fighting and swap out our tactics. Running out of ammo is often a good way for your hero to be forced to showcase their skills in other ways. maybe we have to talk it out with the enemy, or maybe we have to fight them in some other manner, right? We go from gunfight to fistfight. Easy. What else? What about when your character gets exhausted? How could that make an action sequence more fun? What are some games you could get out of that? How could we make that more interesting?
They have to use new tactics to adapt.
Like, what kind of new tactic would they have to maybe use when they get exhausted?
Like using the environment. You know, they um, they grab a rope and cut it, and now they are propelled upwards instead of having to climb or jump, or they have to, um, I don't know, make the enemies fight each other somehow. They have to um, use wits or rely on others, or I don't know, maybe, Batman can't punch the dark side anymore, so now he's too tired. Now he has to use trickery and gadgets and uh, this kind of thing.
Yeah, great examples. Or maybe your hero just realizes, I'm losing now, I have to get away. So we change from a fight scene to an escape sequence, or like a chase.
Oh, that's true.
It might be hard to escape when
Or
you're exhausted, but they may have to get in their car and make a drive for it. Go ahead.
or in Crank, if he gets tired, he's gonna die. Basically, his heart's gonna stop, so he has to find a way to ingest caffeine or some kind of drug, or like put jumper cables on his chest and kickstart his heart or this kind of thing.
Yeah. I think if they do a third one, they should make it that he has to constantly be on fire. I don't know what could possibly justify that, but I
Crank
guess
3, Burning Man.
yeah. Burning love. We do it's a virus or something that he needs to keep his body temperature above a certain point or else he'll die. Maybe we do the virus like speed sort of thing. I don't know. But I think watching the character have to find creative ways to set himself on fire again would be funny. How about injuries? What about if your character loses an arm in a sword fight? What fun can we get from that? How could that make the action scene more interesting or dynamic? Or how would you change up your tactics if you lose an arm?
Just go Ash Williams and attach a chainsaw.
Pick a weapon on your arm instead. It's a classic technique. That's what I would do.
Yeah. Chucky does that in Child's Play 2.
Yeah.
He loses an arm or like a hand, and he puts a knife in it. Now he has a knife hand. He's even more threatening.
If I ever lost a limb, the very first thing I would do would be to replace it with a weapon. I don't know about you guys. Anything else you can do with this?
Use kicks.
Kicking.
Okay.
Okay. Good option,
Fight
especially if
one-handed.
you lose both arms. Yeah, you might have to find a different weapon that you can maybe use in your offhand. I guess it depends if it's your offhand or not, right? If it's
How
your
about you
offhand,
pick up your arm, your severed arm, with your good hand and use it as a club?
there you go. Yeah, Mortal Kombat style tactics at play could definitely work. All right, so these are all opportunities. Like these, you might look at things like, well, why do I have to keep track of how many bullets they have? That's boring. But actually, it makes your character seem more competent when they account for challenges like that. And it can be maybe you think it's not cool to have a character run out of ammo. That might make the hero seem lame, or that might make them seem less competent, or something like that. But actually, watching them manage and account for that makes them seem more competent. It makes them seem cooler. And also makes us sort of invested in that competence more. There's almost nothing you can do to get an audience quicker invested in a character than show them being competent at action stuff. Well, there's a couple things. One, they're very attractive. That is tough to pull off in a book, but I mean, you don't need much. In a book, you can sort of just suggest what the character looks like, right? Two is they're hyper competent at something. So those are both just ways that it almost doesn't matter what the character is doing, but the audience almost can't help but invest in that journey. Okay, so don't worry way too much about that bookkeeping stuff in that first draft, but in the revision, you have to really just maintain that consistent sense of physics and rules in the world and not cheat in terms of you have the 6-shooter and your character shoots 8 bullets from it. Well, then even that is cheating. So we can't cheat. Don't think of it as homework though, but think of them as gateways to creative fun and problem solving that can highlight the resourcefulness of your characters and really start approaching action sequences as more like puzzles, more like problem-solving puzzles. Disadvantages are really important, and limitations are always going to force that creativity. Okay, any action scenes in your guys' novels that you want to tell us about?
I've got a few. I have a cage fight, basically, for um, these orphans that are like pit together to fight each other for the entertainment um, of a bunch of drunk Westerners. I don't know. They fight dogs versus dogs, boys versus boys, boys versus dogs, birds versus birds. There's like giant cannibalistic, I don't know, meat-eating birds. They're very vicious, and ultimately, there's a. I think I only do two actual like fights start to finish. I just kind of summarize some of the other ones, and in the final fight, our protagonist, sort of like friend and ally, gets killed by a bird that is unleashed into the arena.
How embarrassing to be killed by a bird. But I'm guessing they're scary fantasy birds, probably not normal
Yeah,
birds.
they're razor beaks. They
Okay.
are terrifying.
So when you're doing a arena/pit fight, that's a very specific type of action sequence. What are the different games and factors that you can play with there?
One thing is the crowd's reaction. Do they like or hate what's happening? Do they throw weapons into the arena, or like, maybe they're just throwing bottles out of frustration, but now we have broken glass in the arena. We can use it as a weapon. That kind of thing.
Yeah, the spectator element can play a huge role. Why might that matter to the fighters, what the audience thinks?
Um, well, I mean, in Gladiator, that's part of the whole deal. Like, your protagonist is climbing through the ranks by giving the crowd what they want.
Hmm.
He wants to become more popular, so like pleasing the crowd is important as a goal.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, the crowd just sort of decides who lives and dies. So
basically,
by pleasing the crowd more, you are ensuring that you have a better chance of survival and success. That might be a factor in your arena type sequences. Also, the crowd can affect the game directly. You mentioned by throwing stuff into the arena. You guys ever watch pro wrestling where a folding chair somehow ends up in the middle of the ring and then gets utilized for smashing? What else? So yeah, we have the crowd. We have the idea that the battlefield might sort of change over the course of that contest. In certain coliseums or arenas, there's also hazards or traps, or things like this. What else? What else can we factor into a scene like this? How about alliances? How about relationships?
oh yeah, that's a big one. That's a big part of my arena fights. So how they meet, and they're enemies at first, and then they become allies, and then they're forced to fight again. Uh, and they won't kill each other, so the bird is unleashed.
Okay, it's a result of them not fighting. That makes sense. So yeah, in the certain arena sequences, the characters might be able to make impromptu alliances. In series like Hunger Games, this is a huge factor in how those action scenes go. Who's on your side? Who can you trust? Who can you temporarily team up with until you part ways? So there's a lot of different rules and games to different types of set pieces. An arena fight is very different from like a alleyway brawl, right? Like the mugging type of set piece is very different from the arena fight type set piece with very different stuff that you can do and lots of different ways that you can frame it. You see examples of this in realistic storylines sometimes, like Fight Club and things like this. So we also see the Gladiator arena and things like Attack of the Clones. There's a whole Gladiator set piece in that follows again similar rules, crowd affecting the match, different animals and hazards being sort of unleashed in the arena that have no loyalty to anyone, and then of course always managing that idea of whom can we trust in the battlefield. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else want to share an action set piece from their book, and we can talk about that type of scene and the different elements of it?
They got a chase scene. if no one else has anything.
This is you and me, I guess. We're the only ones here, it feels like. I'm gonna give one more volunteer.
I mean,
I think.
my issue is I have them in Spanish, so I don't think I can share them.
Well, you're not gonna share the scene, you're just gonna tell us what the scene is.
How do I put it? It's not a training montage as it is, but it's kind of a mix of a philosophical practice mixed with fighting with certain types of magic in my world. It's kind of like a philosophical practice, more like Shaolin monks and things like that, but more based on things that are from my country.
Okay. So a training sequence, is there a specific objective where they're trying to learn to do one tangible thing?
Reality is she already knew how to do it in theory. It's they're trying to make her do it in practice.
Okay, so yes, there's
She already had been studying. So it's more like her doing it for real this time, not just like the theory of it.
oh, okay, but there is one specific skill that they're trying to perfect.
A couple, but yes, they're really specific to her.
Okay, so like training scenes can work as effective action scenes, but you need to have clear goalposts for them. Otherwise, it just is unclear what the effect of all that is. Usually, the characters will be trying to learn a specific skill or tactic or technique, or they will be training for a specific event. So they'll be kind of like putting into practice everything that they will have to do for that event. But then usually we have to have some kind of benchmark that assesses, are they ready? Did they succeed at that training or not? Often that takes the form of some kind of like the final boss challenge. Think of like climbing the huge pole in Mulan. Like that kind of stands in for, well, only when you are mentally prepared or you've done enough of that sort of internal work will you be able to then succeed at the physical element of this. So that becomes a nice way that you can connect that physical and mental development. You sort of say the physical victory here will be a result only of that kind of mentally achieving that state or that realization that your character needs to. Anything else you want to add or share about that sequence?
Yeah, I mean, I am working on that part because I'm basing it on the Mulan like training sequence
Oh, good.
in a way. Because she's also kind of like an outcast in some shape or form, because most everyone starts their training when they're young. She's starting it at 22 and she's surrounded by kids. So literally she's the oldest one and she's the one that does it the worst.
Okay, got it. So yeah, if you're basing it sort of on that sort of the model of the Milan climbing the pole sequence, then you need one sort of central challenge that the character fails at a bunch of times. And then we understand that that becomes the benchmark of understanding, have they completed their training or have they learned what they need to learn or not? So lots of failure would be important there. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, still writing it. So I am working through it.
Okay, all good. But I hope it's good. There's a lot of different types of action scenes. We went over sort of just a few of them, but they all have their own different rules, and they all have different things that like different games you can play, different things you can factor in. When we say things like games and fun, we don't always mean the characters are playing games or having fun. The characters are often actually kind of miserable, but we, the reader and the writer, can have this sort of fun in games, meaning referring to kind of like the core promises of your genre. And especially if you're writing something in the military, war, action, adventure kind of world, there's going to be action set pieces. That's just a core promise. Dakota says he's shopping, but he'll be here soon. That's good to see. I look forward to seeing him here. So we have our sense of external development in action scenes pretty well defined. We know that your character is trying to make progress towards achieving something. That might be winning a fight, might be getting away from an enemy, might be achieving a certain skill in their training. But we need to know exactly what that clear benchmark is and make sure, in order for the audience to know when that has been definitively achieved or failed. And then we can't forget the internal development too, which is going to come usually in the form of emotion. So your character's feeling things as the scene goes on, and by the end, they're going to be in a different mental space than they started that scene. So let's maybe just look at, I'm just going to read this quick example of very plain, very simple, straightforward emotion in action. And sometimes we can also communicate a kind of lack of emotion, especially if your character is somebody really used to this frantic physical violence or action that they're undertaking in the story. Then you probably don't want to make it seem too emotional because the character's training might be kicking in, or they might be numb to this, or they might be traumatized by this, or something like that, right? Reacher chose the path of least resistance. He ducked his head and let the punch scythe through the empty air above it. Then he bounced back up and launched to his feet and twisted and used his falling backward momentum to jerk his elbow into the guy's kidney, which was rotating around into position just in time. It was a good solid hit. The guy went down hard. Reacher fell back in his chair and sat there like absolutely nothing had happened. Sort of just gets right to the point. We don't really need to focus on anything or like linger on this too long. We don't really need to talk about the reverberation of muscle. You don't really need to get into like the bruising or the impact or the pain in his hand. Like if it was somebody's very first fight, you might describe it a little differently. This character's clearly been in fights before. If it was a character who this was their first fight in their whole life, how would we write this differently, do you think?
If it was his very first fight,
Yeah.
probably emphasize the emotion, the panic, the uncertainty, the trying tactics that they've never tried.
Sure, I could definitely do that. Different people have different like way of processing these things, of course. One way might be that your character is sort of floundering and panicky and yeah, feeling more of that that pressure and that anxiety and that fear of what is going to happen. Oh God, what have I done? Should I have even done that? Should I have thrown that punch? What's going to happen next? That would be one way that your character could perceive that. You could also do this sort of like imagine the blind rage kind of thing. How would we write that where your character's just overcome by anger, and any ideas how you might approach writing that?
Yeah, just Hunger Games, I think, has this where the character just loses control. They're acting on instinct. They're um, sort of barely aware of what they're doing until it's over and they can process it.
Yeah. Sure, we see those scenes sometimes that are kind of just like, and then I looked down and I saw my feet were moving. Then I looked up and I saw my hands were closing around the guy's throat. And then I looked down, I was covered in blood and I was at the police station. It was like 3 hours later. I didn't even know how I got there. Like that 3 hours might be a bit much for it to have the character dissociate out of. But I hope that makes sense how if your character is so overwhelmed by these sort of overpowering emotions or experiences, they may not be able to really articulate in their narrative voice at all. We sort of might just go directly to, I looked down and the guy was already dead. We're trying to match how the character perceives and experiences it. We can also use plenty of this free indirect speech, which kind of mirrors your character's thought process throughout the text. And this can be used in any format, except for first person, where we kind of assume that your character is always doing this. But in pretty much any type of third person, whether it's past or present, whether it's close or omniscient, you can always be using this idea of the character will sort of intersperse their own thoughts in their own voice throughout the text. You can put it in italics if you want to. I would recommend probably doing it. And it's a very common way to do it nowadays. Let's look at this example from Those Across the River by Christopher Bullman. This is the scene where a guy's being stalked by a werewolf. Something we're just in time for Halloween, right? Well, I guess it was yesterday. Maybe we're late for Halloween, but I consider the spooky season extending into November. Controversial, maybe. Something moved past the window. I ran into my kitchen, which was wild with the shadows of branches swaying on the floor. I grabbed Dora's silverware from the drawer. Some of it fell and clattered to the floor as I took the stairs 2 at a time, moving past the shut bedroom door and into my study. The front door downstairs began to rattle as something strong tried to force its way in. Then 3 hard raps came. Is it knocking? They came again. See how it says, is it knocking? That's free indirect thought or free indirect speech. Any questions on that? Okay, make heavy use of that. That is a common technique nowadays and is a great tool for characterization. It's very unobtrusive. Let's maybe look at one more, and then we'll go into set pieces and blocking, and then I do have an exercise today. Okay, so characterization and detail. So as your characters are fighting and running and chasing and jumping and exploding or whatever it is that they're doing in your action scenes. Sorry, I see a question in the chat. Yes, called free and direct speech. So that's right. Megan, we're hearing some voices through your mic. If you wouldn't mind muting your microphone, please.
Oh, sorry, that's in the background. I apologize.
All good. All right, so your characters are fighting and running and jumping, etc. But these make for good opportunities. That doesn't mean that it's a time where we should be doing like sometimes people even fall into this trap, especially action people will fall into this trap of, well, the talking parts and the good parts. Or it's not just action writers that fall into that. Romance writers fall into that too. Every kind of writer is guilty of falling into, well, the boring part and the good part. But thinking of it in those terms is hazardous to your health, or your story's health, because if you think of those as, well, first for two reasons. One, if you think of scenes as the boring scenes that are just perfunctory and you just have to get through them, then they will be for perfunctory and will feel like a drag to the reader as well. And you have to always be bringing out some of like your best work in those kind of like in between scenes, and you have to be getting just as excited about those as you are getting about the blockbuster moments themselves. And when you, especially if you're writing in the action genre, which is not the focus of this bootcamp, but I'm writing an action movie right now, and I consider myself an action writer. You have to be, when you're planning stages, like thinking of these sort of in-between moments, like where we're learning more about the characters, not just in the action scenes, but in those sort of moments of rest and recuperation. Those sort of processing scenes where we call them sometimes sequel scenes. After the action is done, everything that your character does afterwards and in between that and the next action thing is going to tell us an enormous amount about them. Also, the way that your character behaves and thinks and emotes throughout the action will tell us a huge amount of detail about that character too. Let's look at this fight scene from Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson, which is a YA romantasy that I quite enjoyed, when I read it 2 years ago. This is an elf prince sword fighting a plant monster. But what do we kind of learn about that? Let's think of, what are we sort of seeing about what is the narrative showing us about this character here? Is it his first fight? Has he done this before? Does he enjoy this? Let's pay special attention to this character Rook's mental state, the elf prince. All right, I'll just read it out. Rook's sword flashed, opening a slice along the beast's underbelly. Its putrid skin split without effort, and he stepped back just in time to avoid the slippery cascade of fungus that spilled from the wound, halting 1 neat inch from the tips of his boots. The voices stopped. Then they all screamed in unison. The Barrow Lord's arm lashed out, scoring the statue in front of which Rook had stood a split second earlier, spraying chips of stone and moss. It slashed at him again and again, senseless and unpredictable in its maddened violence, forcing him to retreat beyond its reach. His back touched the hedge and he began circling it, his steps easy, a cat circling a hound, unafraid. It shambled after him, lunging clumsily over the standing stones. Okay, we're characterizing through the action. What are we learning about the elf prince?
Nobody? I was only half paying attention. I apologize.
Feels like everyone's doing that. Okay, we're gonna wrap up this class. We're just gonna go to the end.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
if you want to know what about him, I didn't want to be to overwhelm other voices.
It's all good.
He's
I think,
nimble
I
and
think let's take a pause for a
trained
moment.
fighter.
So let's take a pause. I appreciate it, Megan. Let's just take a quick second. So unless you guys are doing the activities, then it's not that not everyone has to do every single one. But if it feels like it's just one person that's doing all of them, everyone else is just kind of tuning out. I'm like, we can just move to the end. Like we can just go to the open lab portion. We can ask, does anyone else have something to work on? So I'm okay doing that for now. Let's just ask, does anyone want to share any questions about their current project, or does anyone have a scene they're struggling with, or some challenge they're facing with their book. Okay, then we'll wrap up for today.
Sorry, yeah, it's Joyce. I was having trouble getting off mute. So one of the things that I realized I did in my first book, and I after going through my rewrites, I realized I'm doing it again or did it again, is, and I don't know why, but I feel like my character is a detective and she's got psychic skills now, so she's kind of trying to, learn the psychic stuff, blend it with her detective stuff. But I feel like in my first book and this book, I kind of have other people solving things around her and her kind of watching. And I feel like now I'm 7 chapters in and I know I'm going through and I'm making those changes, but what kind of practices do you guys do? Like, do you put a hat on and like this is my personality and or my character's personality and do that every single time? So I feel like I have so many inconsistencies or things that I'm like, why did I do that? What kind of and hopefully that made sense what I just rambled, but what kind of tips
It
do you
seemed
have?
like maybe a couple different questions. One question was the other characters are solving problems for your hero. The other one was a question about characterization being consistent. Is that right?
Yeah, because I mean, in some chapters I have her strong, but then I seem to have her sit back and let other people show her things and have her kind of react versus I'm going back through now and having her notice something and other people reacting, but I don't know why my default is to have my character be so, I don't want to call it passive, but I don't know.
It's a common problem. So one way you could approach that is so look at all your scenes where you feel like the main character takes a back seat and ask, well, who's actually solving the problem and what work are they doing to solve that problem? Then just simply maybe turn it so that you can have your character be the one to do that instead. Like, can they be the
Okay.
one to have that realization or to put those clues together? Or can they be the one to like find that missing piece that everyone else is missing that allows the other people to come to the right conclusion or something like that? Like keeping your main character feeling active and like they're the one really driving the story is very important.
Yeah.
I'm even thinking of like the ending of the War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise. It's just an alien invasion story about a family trying to survive, right? But at the end of the movie, he's the one that sort of realizes that the alien shields have gone down because birds are landing on them, and all the soldiers are like, "How do we fight these aliens?" He's like, "Look, the shields are down." So even the hero in that movie about a regular guy, we can still sort of frame it like he's the one that sort of solves the problem in a way, right? Like you give us that sense that he was instrumental in it, even if he wasn't the one to actually shoot the rocket. So I would be trying to think of like, how can your hero be the one to, if they are not the one solving the problem themselves, how can they engender the solving of that problem by either providing some key piece of information or taking some action that allows others to succeed. And then we show that it was a direct result of what they did.
Gotcha. Okay. And then when you were on the action thing, I was just kind of thinking, so I didn't interrupt, but so I always thought of actions as like the Matrix fight scene kind of thing. And so I'm wondering, like, when they're finding the body and going through the woods and stuff, is that considered like an action scene? Or you
Finding a
mentioned a
body.
second part?
Probably not. Probably not. So
Okay.
frantic physical action is what makes action, is what determines that. A frantic physical challenge, I guess we'll say, is what determines action. So if your character has to like dig up a body before it rains or else they're going to lose the money that they need, then we're starting to add pressure, especially if there's some kind of antagonistic force that makes it feel a lot more actionish, right? So if you have characters racing to find where a corpse is buried, that now we're in a chase, or now we're in a race, I guess you would say, not a chase necessarily. But we do require that sense of frantic physical action. So characters struggling to climb a cliff, your character's trying to win a fist fight, your character is trying to get home before mom and dad get home. All of those things can be action. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to have high gravity and high stakes to it. You know, two people playing soccer is action. It just requires that idea of frantic physical challenge.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question. Hope that helped.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
I have another question.
Go ahead.
Oh, go for it.
No, go ahead.
Was it Lou?
Yeah, it was, oh, okay. So I was wondering if we could go back to the Elf Prince excerpt. I wasn't able to catch it, but I was interested in trying to analyze it.
Okay, let's come back to that in a bit. Let's try to just wrap up with
Okay.
questions first, and then if we have time, we can take a look at that. Okay,
Okay.
anyone else? Open lab for questions based on what we talked about today, or something from your book you want to share for feedback?
I would like to brainstorm a chapter, but that might take a while. It sounds like someone else had something, so you can go first.
Okay.
I was actually just gonna ask, the first two books I wrote, I just did that thing that what I think you're supposed to do, the word dump. You just write it all, then you go back and you kind of clean up and you have your gazillion drafts. And with this book, because I realized when I got done with those books, I did have some procedural stuff wrong, and it took a long time to go back through each vein and try to fix it. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do this in acts. Act one, I'm going to go through and do like a developmental focus on it. Does anyone else do that? Because I feel like I lost time, but I also got a cleaner copy to move forward into the next act with. I was just curious on that.
Does anyone work that way?
I don't know. I feel like I'm always outlining.
I mean, I do my outlines, but mostly I don't do them by acts. I do them by chapters.
Yeah, let me explain. I wasn't really talking about outlines. I was actually, once your chapters are written, going through for like a developmental edit, not to check your outline or redo your outline, but just to see, are your characters consistent? Are your police procedures accurate? I'm also doing some, you know, psychic investigation stuff. So is that accurate? Just to kind of, like for example, one of the things I was walking my dog and I'm like, oh my God, I have one of my psychic persons read a necklace from one lady, but she finds the body of another one. Well, why did she find the body of someone else when she's reading a necklace from her friend? You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And so I switched it to something of the person that she found. But it's those little things that I'm just like, God, how did I make that mistake? Like that's, kind of, and that kind of thing. Like, do you go to that level or do you just write it all and then look for that type of thing?
I probably do that too much, if anything. It's where it slows me down from making forward progress. So maybe just try to just do big picture stuff with your edits, like, okay, I need to introduce this character earlier, or I need to delete this motivation and change it, or I need to, I don't know. That's, but the details can wait, I think is my big takeaway.
I like that. You have just changed my world. Just
Oh.
kind of, unless it's really drastic, keep a note of it and then go back. I think that's what I heard. Is that what you said?
More or less, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, in my case, I also just go all the way. The only corrections I do is wording. I never check for story or plot holes or things like that because I know I'm going to change everything if I start doing that.
Okay, some good thoughts
Which
there.
is
Thank you.
what I ended up doing. Okay, thanks.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm not doing developmental editing before the draft is done usually, but then once it is done, I think, yeah, I go through the draft like dozens and dozens of times to try to smooth all those things out before I do even the first readers. I have never shared a book with readers before working on it for at least a year. Okay, thank you for that question. Hope that gives you some insight or some thoughts there on how to approach that. Do we have any other questions or hurdles with your novel, things that we could use to or do to give you that boost and help you get to the next part?
This is a question mostly because I have. How do I make it so people don't despise a character I have, but at the same time, like, hate him slowly? Because he is supposed to be the villain at the end. He's one of my POVs, but I'm building him up to be like the villain. The thing that I'm struggling with is that he's already from the start a really mean and like irredeemable, not irredeemable, he has some redeemable qualities. The thing is, still then he's a douchebag.
Okay. Are you said he's a POV character, so we hear his thoughts and we know kind of like what he's thinking, is that, and where he's coming from, is that right?
Yeah. I'm not doing first person, I'm doing third.
Okay. But even in third, you can do a lot to get us on a character's side by just kind of showing why they are the way they are. You know, if your character is a cantankerous old man who yells at kids on his lawn all day, we could root for that. We could sort of we can identify with this not wanting to be bothered. We can identify with almost any feeling if you explain it properly and take us through it. So I think probably show why your character is such a jerk all the time. Is it because of his upbringing? Is it because he has some emotional trigger that is getting, that is easily tripped or something like that? Yeah, have the audience understand him a little more, and then and also just play up those what you describe as those redeemable qualities. Even if the character ends up being unredeemable by the end, we don't need to know that. Like, you want to sort of tease the possibility that they could make the right choices or they could be good. That might be another thing you can try. Anyone else have suggestions on how they can balance this, like building this character up till they become the main villain by the end?
Trying to think of examples to do this.
Lucy just make them funny. Yeah, a character being funny always makes them more likable.
Maybe the Dark Knight. Does that build up Harvey Dent as the villain, kind of? I don't know. It's overshadowed by a much stronger villain, I think. I don't know if that's a good example.
I think that is a good example. Yeah, Harvey is a protagonist until he does a heel turn. So if you're talking about a heel turn, then this is where we go from a character being sort of on the good or right side, and then something happens that breaks their motivations or makes them have to turn on their former allies, often the result of some kind of betrayal. And yeah, in Harvey's case, he feels like he was betrayed by Bruce. So that's a good example. But yeah, and for a lot of that story, we play up how heroic and how much of a tragic downfall it is for Harvey. He's like the kind of hero the city really needs, as they keep saying. He's in fact the kind of hero that even Bruce wants to support and say, maybe that's the right way to be approaching this. Maybe I'm doing this the wrong way. So yeah, really, really playing up that character's redeemable best qualities and showing how important they are does a lot towards making their downfall feel more tragic and unexpected.
Yeah, I think I could use the Dark Knight as an example now that I'm thinking about it. Just because there's a bigger villain than him. And technically he also kind of brainwashes him slowly.
Okay. Yeah, that could definitely work. Anybody else have some thoughts they want to share on that? Okay, thank you for the question. Hope that gives you some good ideas. Let's reopen to questions or issues with your novel that you're working on now.
I dropped in an action scene, but I would like to just brainstorm a chapter as well, which would probably take more time.
Okay, what do you want to, where do we start?
Okay. Among Dogs, our protagonist, his parents are murdered. He vows revenge. He's grows up a few years in a basically like a slave labor camp with orphans. He learns to fight like hand to hand, and
He pushes
there's
the wheel around.
yeah, the wheel of pain. It's very Conan. Yeah,
Mhm.
there's even a riddle he has to solve, which is what makes a gun. Um, And the answer ultimately is the will to kill is what makes a gun, and that's what he becomes at the end. But um, the there's an escape. He travels through the desert. He meets a mysterious bee man, and then the next chapter is an idyllic little town. And I want it to just be one chapter. I want to sort of introduce the idea that he could get new parents if he stays here. Like he could basically be adopted by this family. He could have a life. He could have a marriage. You know, all the girls are like, I don't know, interested in him. Like all the parents are trying to like wed their daughters off to him or something. Um, but instead of all this, he turns it all away and he chooses the gun. He chooses to go after revenge. I just need to rethink this whole thing and make it really short, simple, and clear, if that makes sense.
Are you trying to
So
think
what
of
can we do?
a set piece, or are you trying to you're just thinking of your character's motivation, or what are you trying to work out?
I'm trying to rethink the whole chapter because it feels like a whole book, and I just need it to be one chapter. Um, so how do I establish like he could have everything he's missing: a home, safety, parents, you know, finances, love, you know, maybe some kind of fulfillment. But he turns it all down and picks the gun. Like I think I literally want him to pick a gun, like steal a gun or choose a gun. I don't know how to explain it. Something that will basically either get him kicked out or ostracized, or maybe he just leaves on his own and becomes an outlaw. And that, I don't know, that something just, um, you know, he steals the gun off the mantelpiece and uh, leaves in the middle of the night. I'm not quite sure. I want to figure this out so I can get it done and move on.
Just like how to approach that chapter, you mean?
Yeah, the
Okay.
whole chapter.
Well, sort of sounds like you're doing something similar to the we were talking about the farm sequence in Last of Us 2, where your character sort of takes a break from their revenge quest, and we sort of we see what their life would be like if they settled down. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And in Last of Us, that takes place pretty close to the end, doesn't it? That's like sort of before the finale sequence in Santa Barbara, isn't it?
Yeah, this would take place more towards the beginning.
Yeah,
So
that's the problem. So that I guess is like why you can't approach it in the exact same way, because like Last of Us had all this time where we are sort of relating to Ellie's core initial motivation, which is the revenge that you really get invested in. Like you've or at least the idea is that the player gets so personally invested in that idea of the revenge that we kind of get it. Or that would at least be that's my interpretation of it, is that we're supposed to sort of like understand and feel that, share that pain and that core wound so deeply that we can relate to a character that might even turn down having everything they want because we could never envision being happy with that need unfulfilled. So it approaching that in a where you're close to where you're at the beginning of a story might actually be a little tougher to explain why they're making that choice, unless you could always play it like it's a mystery to the character himself. Like he doesn't exactly know why he is sort of, drawn to this violence or drawn to like away from good things in his life and towards violence and pain. Um, you could make it kind of a mystery. Maybe you'll maybe make this promise of, he himself didn't know why, but if you keep reading, maybe by the end you'll kind of learn why alongside him. Maybe he's curious as to why he doesn't make that choice. I think that your audience won't be on board with the character's journey in the same way if we're so close to the start. So maybe do something else with that moment. Maybe you could maybe even mostly portray it from someone else's point of view, and then even leave them wondering, why did he leave? Like why was this not enough for him? That might be another approach you could take too. Look at other people's reactions and responses to that and emphasize that over your character's own motivations. This would just be a couple different ideas. What does that make you think about?
um, all kinds of things. I think maybe what I'm missing is some kind of catalyst, um, some kind of trigger to uh, pull him away from this, a reminder of the trauma. Um, maybe he sees the marshal or gets wind that the marshal is nearby, or maybe the marshal is doing something to this town that is corrupt and must be stopped, you know, else more people end up dead like his parents. I
Oh,
don't
I
know.
thought you wanted an internal reason. You're okay with an external rationale for why he would have to move on as well?
Yeah, I think that might work stronger in this early in the story because he hasn't fully sort of like crossed that threshold. This is that moment where he has to cross the threshold and make the choice,
Mhm.
like happiness or revenge,
Right.
safety or revenge.
Okay. So an external event might in fact be the easiest way to force him in a very explicit way to ask, is it worth continuing this violence or putting it down forever? So yeah, some new threat that's being posed or something that only he can step forward to resolve with violence might be a good solution.
So what might that be? Particularly could uh in relation to a corrupt marshal in a high fantasy Weird West setting.
The corrupt marshal takes control of the town that he's in, or attempts to exert some kind of control over it. Seems like the first thing that leaps to mind. If not that, then somewhere in the vicinity there, oppressing people, robbing people, uh, increasing their taxes unfairly. Whatever your villain does, I'm not quite sure what his powers are, but yeah, some causing some, doing their crime trade or committing his normal oppression on the people around your hero seems to be pretty much the only thing that would make sense, right? It would have to be nearby because otherwise they wouldn't hear about it in the given their setting, right?
Um, what if it's even a more nebulous reminder, just something that uh, triggers the PTSD, and then he can't sleep and he can't whatever. What might trigger a memory of your parents being shot when you're a kid? He's got the Batman origin story basically. Um,
Well, a lot of things. I mean, guns just on their own might be a trigger if you were exposed to gun violence as a child, like gunshots or loud noises or unexpected gunshots, maybe.
okay,
Uh,
maybe we can go down this direction. What might change him from hating guns and being afraid of them, especially in this prison camp that he's just been in, to now like, I need a gun. I need to pick one up. I need to use it. I need to kill this marshal. Um, how do you? Hmm.
so he starts hating them. You're saying he starts not
At this
voluntarily.
point, at this point, he does hate them. Like he hates guns. He's afraid of them. He hates dogs. He's afraid of them. We're going to solve that problem in the next chapter, but this chapter would be the moment where he's like, you know, it's the Batman. He's terrified of bats, but he goes down the well and he like stands in the cloud of bats and like lets the fear like consume him or whatever, so he could transform into Batman. Like, how do I get that same kind of
Falls into
transformation?
a gun factory, and he ends up on the assembly line having to dodge all the machine parts until by the end he's like surrounded by these beautiful guns. He's like, "Whoa, I understand the process of manufacturing now so much more." No, it's a stupid idea.
Oh, his dad's a gunsmith too. Maybe he can maybe his new adopted father has a problem with a gun, like his gun needs fixing, and
Sure,
only Enzo is the one that can do it. So Enzo has to sort of like confront his aversion to guns.
sure.
Um,
The business is failing, and now he's a natural expert with guns, and so he's able to act as an assistant to the gunsmith and start learning the trade. And now he's making lots of money. Now people respect him and like him, and he sort of gets used to them or comes to appreciate them in a new way.
okay, I think that's going to be the solution. I'll have to use that as a jumping off point, but yeah, I think I can figure it out now.
Okay, yeah, the gunsmith angle is probably the right one to play.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Sure. Thanks for sharing. Hope that's helpful. Okay.
If we have time, you can look at my action scene, but I think other people might have things.
I'll give you a lab from 46 today if you want to bring into that as well. Okay, anyone else? Okay, Lou, did you want to take one more look at the scene? This or the slide that I had on characterization?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. So should I just leave you to read it back for a moment, and then you can speak up whenever you have a thought that you want to share?
Okay, yeah, I'm not good at analysis, so I can't promise I'll have anything, but I can try.
Well, that's okay. It doesn't have to be good analysis. That's the secret. That's the cheat code.
Okay.
So we're reading for characterization of Rook, if anybody else wants to speak to that.
Sure, Rook shows that the fact that he's a trained fighter, shows the fact that he's nimble. He shows the fact that he's not afraid of his opponent.
Mhm. Yep.
If somebody else wants to continue.
Yep, thank you for that.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest characterization line that I'm seeing there is his steps easy, a cat circling, a hound unafraid. I think it's like, well, first it's like the choice of a cat and a hound is interesting, because usually a cat is, you know, ill-equipped to deal with a hound,
Right.
which suggests that, this is a kind of cat that would tease a dog like while it's like sitting on a fence or something.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the main thing I was able to see besides like the defining the, you know, the this violence itself is a little bit grotesque, but
Yeah, look how it's
so he calls it
contrasting.
putrid and
Yeah, look
yeah.
how that's contrasting as well to the character who feels sort of untouchably clean and perfect compared to it's putting him up against a monster that is putrid fungus and disgusting, and the hero has, that, what does it say? The fungus halts 1 neat inch from the tip of his boots. Sort of says like he won't even allow the slightest speck of dust to disturb his outfit. So we get that sense of perfectionism and that kind of cat-like grace that you mentioned.
Oh, okay, I see that. I see that. Which book is this from?
Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson.
Ah, gotcha. Okay.
It's a standalone as well. There's no sequels, just the one. How many romanticy series of just one book?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything else, but yeah, that didn't occur to me, that contrast that you're mentioning.
Yep, I think you guys got the major points there. Thank you for that. Okay. Let's look at everything we have coming up, and I guess I'll open the floor one more time. We do have a little time left. But so following leads: mood, tone, and genre, plot, twist, mystery, and suspense, pressure cooker, which was latter half of Act 2, from midpoint up until all is lost. And then self-editing techniques and endings. What to do next? November 29th, with that first draft finished by December 6th. Okay, last call. Anyone else?
Yeah, I just have a question on your screen. It says on track to finish by February 14th, but
sorry.
we're just saw like December, right? Okay,
Yeah, that's from an old slide.
thanks.
I've got a short action scene we could look at. See if the scene geography is clear and if the emotional impact is clear. This is like a mini arc.
All right, let's bring it up. Thank you for sharing.
Some assignments.
I got it. Okay.
Yeah, scroll to the bottom. It's like the last 2 pages.
Why am I getting black pages?
Why is it black? What the hell? I've never seen that.
Seen it before on Firefox. Don't know why it's doing it. I'll switch to Chrome, I guess. Works fine on Chrome.
That's bizarre. You might be able to highlight it and read it that way, but it would be black.
1 second. I think I got it here. Okay, there we go.
Okay, just scroll down to the last 2 pages. There's a time break. It should be, what's the line? Damn it, I lost.
There's a break. Yes.
Yeah, that it's yeah, Enzo pressed his face to is where you start.
Okay. So you want to read this and just evaluate if the emotion is working, or is there something else?
Emotion, scene geography, yeah.
Got it. Okay. I don't know anything about where we are in the story or what's going on, so I'll just be kind of blind. But Enzo is the
cage
main
battle.
character. Oh, this is the
He's
cage
been
battle.
in he's in a prison camp basically, and now he's been thrust into this sort of like underground arena situation they have going on for select orphans they pick out to fight in this barn.
Man. Orphan cage fighting. All right. Where are we? Enzo pressed his face to the bars of a claustrophobic steel cage. His view of the great barn was blocked by Doc Crugen, who kneeled in front of him, droning on endlessly, something about move and cover up. Enzo couldn't hear him, only the clamor of a huge crowd, its beating heart. Hang on. So, are you in close third, by the way?
Yeah, I need to fix one word. Yeah, close third.
All right. Past the doc, Enzo could wait. So the doctor is kneeling in front of him, droning on about moving and covering. So this is like he's sort of giving him advice for the upcoming fight.
Yeah, this
Okay.
we've like hard cut from like you got to fight for your supper to like now you're about to fight.
Okay. Past the dock, Enzo could see some of the crowd through a thick fog of tobacco smoke. There were men, lots of them, mostly human. Some wore suits, most wore work rags or suspenders. They chattered and passed slips of paper, filled buckets with dollar notes and shiny coins. They sipped booze from a rainbow of color-stained bottles. Can't stand still, droned Krugen. He's quicker than a greased pig. You got a great cheer erupted from the crowd. Men jumped to their feet. Whoops and jeers joined raucous applause. Slips and money exchanged hands in a circus flurry. Doc stood to get a better view, and Enzo's view cleared for a moment. What he saw was 2 hounds fighting on a large dirt floor. The smaller hound's jaws clamped around the larger dog's neck, pinning it to the barn floor, squeezing the life out as it convulsed and kicked. Can we go back just a step here? So are we inside or are we outside?
Inside.
We're inside. Okay. Inside in a cage, in like you said underground, so like in a basement, or what room are we in?
The Great Barn.
We're in a bar. Oh, okay.
I guess I could be a little more clear. I'll just highlight this.
Yeah, I guess I was unclear if that meant he was in the barn or where exactly, like, I guess in terms of the geography, I wasn't clear where your character actually was starting the scene.
Right.
So where the fight is taking place in like the middle of the barn, outside the stalls. Is that or is it in one of the stalls?
It's like in the center of a great barn. Yeah, there's no stalls in it. It's just a barn house.
Okay. We are all betting there's 2 hounds fighting on
This
a
is
large dirt floor. Go ahead.
this is also sort of the main feature of the ranch, and we've seen it from a distance before, but we're now inside of it.
Mm-hmm. And your main character's in the arena at the start of this, or is he in the crowd?
He's in a cage inside the arena.
In a cage in the arena. Okay, got it. And are there other cages, or is he the only one?
There's another one across from him, but we haven't introduced it yet.
Okay. Maybe that was all just sort of set up a little bit more in the previous chapter, but I would, if not, then I would do a little more sort of just scene setting in your first paragraph or two, just so we know kind of like
Got
where your character is beginning. Because reading this, I wasn't clear. Well, I guess I did understand that he's in the cage, but I was like, is the cage like hanging from the ceiling, or is it in the middle, or is it in the crowd, or where exactly is it?
Gotcha.
Okay, they're cheering. The dogs are killing each other. You're next, kid, said the doc. Me, said Enzo. His heartbeat quickened. He barely heard Doc's response, some nonsense about keeping his feet on the ground. Where else was he supposed to put them? The cage screeched open, and Enzo's heart threatened to break through his ribs and flutter away into space. It's a nice interiority. Good job with the sort of balancing the emotion there. All right, boy, now's your chance. Don't die. Doc grabbed him by the shirt and tossed him into the ring. There's just that maybe just need to get fixed up there. Time slowed to a crawl. Fight, came the chance. Fight! It must have been seconds, but it felt like years. Another steel cage screeched open. A lean man with long white hair released Enzo's opponent. So just if you're gonna do the time slows down to a crawl kind of thing, I would give us at least like one example of what that kind of looks or feels like for your character. Like, do we see the like if you imagine it's like a slow-mo shot in a movie, what would we actually be looking at, right? Like, do we see popcorn just like drifting slowly past him like stars in the galaxy, or do we watch like maybe just find
Okay.
one or two specific visuals there of what it would actually look like now that time has slowed down? Another cage open, and this is the one across from him, is that right?
Yeah, maybe I'll just add across from him.
Yeah, because he'd be able to see it. If you say another cage, that sort of sounds like one that he did not know about. Okay, a lean man with long white hair released Enzo's opponent. The crowd exploded into a standing ovation. The orphan boy across from Enzo was tiny, dark gray, and pointed. He was tiny, dark gray, and pointed. How can a boy be pointed? What does that mean?
He's got pointy ears, pointy features,
Oh, that's
like bony shoulders, bony like elbows and knees.
okay. I'm not sure I would have gotten that from just the word pointed on its own, unless there's some meaning of it that I'm just not aware of. Is there? Maybe not. Okay, so
That's-
even the way you just described it might be a bit more evocative here, like that kind of boniness that you mentioned. Tribal markings covered his lean body. Black locks were tied in a high, tight braid, and elf ears tapered back at a severe angle, horizontal rather than vertical. Enzo recognized this trait. The boy was a tribal, a savage. His eyes, like leadened coals, stared death, black, red, and smoldering. Nice imagery. Fight, fight, the crowd repeated. A new chant took over. Crow, crow, crow. The tribal boy marched into the center of the ring. I guess his name is Crow. Unless that means something else. A
That's
wall
his
of men.
name.
That is his name. Okay. A wall of men pushed in behind them, encircling them. Enzo searched for a way out. No exits, just guns, men, dogs, and more guns. The boy clenched his fists, his teeth flashed. He inched closer, step, step. With every step, he thumped his fists hard into his chest, a drum beat. Was he serious? Looking at him up close, he was so tiny. He couldn't have been more than 6 or 7 years old, and so short Enzo could throttle him. I don't want to fight you, Enzo said, showing his hands. Yeah, screamed the child, launching into a wild airborne kick. Enzo, an airborne kick. Wow, like a Street Fighter move. Enzo reeled
Yeah.
backwards, barely dodging. Cheers exploded from the crowd. 2 swift kicks followed up. Enzo jumped away. Men pushed him back into the arena. His heart pounded in his ears, drowning out the crowd's hoots and laughter. Enzo tried to reason. We don't have to kill each other. His opponent couldn't or wouldn't understand. A jab struck Enzo hard in the face. Half his vision flashed white. His head jackknifed backwards. It was harder than he'd ever been hit. Really? By a 7-year-old? It was harder than he'd ever been hit? Worse than being kicked by a mule? Whoa. Okay, is this kid magic? Is that why he's kicking hard, punching harder than a mule?
Uh, let's go with that. He's definitely got some training. He knows how to fight.
Okay,
But
I
you
mean,
could also attribute some of his physical characteristics to, I don't know, magical conditioning,
I would think
maybe
yeah,
ritual.
it would kind of have to be for a 6-year-old to kick an adult and have them describe it as being kicked by a mule.
He's not an adult. He's
Oh, he's not.
he's like 11 at this point, I think, maybe
Oh,
10.
okay. I misunderstood. I thought this was an adult. Okay, Enzo's vision returned. He was lying face up on the ground. Pretty good way of doing that sort of like losing track of where you are sort of thing that we mentioned with the rage of anger. The boy leaped high into the air, screaming, and crashed down with a mighty elbow. Enzo rolled, barely missing the strike. He leapt to his feet. I don't want to fight you, he screamed. The boy snarled. His fists flared out to his sides, darted first left, then a quick circle to the right. A flurry of punches blasted Enzo in the ribs. He tried uselessly to defend. Enzo shoved. To his surprise, his attacker flew back. Enzo recalled something Pa told him. Conrad men don't punch. If someone's punching you, climb him like a tree. Enzo pushed close and grabbed the boy in a bear hug, squeezing down hard. The boy slipped easily underneath and shot a hard kick to the back. Hard kick to the back. To Enzo's back, I guess. Enzo screamed and wheeled around, grabbing again. His enemy shot through his legs and blasted him with a screaming punch to the same spot. How? This little bastard was half his size. How was he losing? Enzo wheeled around. The boy charged him. You probably want to do that on a separate line. Enzo wheeled around. The boy charged him. Enzo leapt and let his full weight crash down on the boy. They scuffled and struggled on the ground. Enzo got on top and pinned the little boy's arms. Boos erupted from the crowd. Shouts of "Crow, Crow" subsided. Stop fighting, Enzo pleaded. A bottle crashed on the ground, nearly striking Enzo in the head as it flew. Another bottle crashed, shattered. I would lose these words as it flew. Almost nearly striking Enzo in the head. Period. Another one crashed, right? Okay. Boos and hisses came between cries of "Finish him!" and "Get him off!" from the crowd. Enzo looked down at the boy's helpless expression. His fiery eyes turned somber and doe-like. It was just a boy. Pity surged within Enzo. It wouldn't take much. A headbutt might knock him unconscious. The boy picked up a shard of glass and slashed at Enzo's throat. Enzo reeled backward. The boy slashed again, drawing blood this time. Enzo grabbed the boy's wrist and slammed his hand down. Kate stared up at him, snarling, teeth bared. Enzo imagined those savage teeth clamping around his throat. The crowd cheered and booed. More bottles rained down. Enzo cocked his head back, then smashed it down in a swift headbutt. The barn spun. The boy's face spiraled as Enzo lost consciousness. Okay, nice managing that interiority. I think you do a pretty good job of that overall, of describing sort of like what the world is doing, but like in relation to the character, like the world faded out or spun around or turned white or things like that. So you're managing that pretty well. I did get a little just lost in the geography and the just like placing those characters. I guess to begin with, it would help if I knew the character is in the middle of that circle of onlookers, right? So there's no raised stage and there's no depressed stage. It's just the floor of the barn. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. So because of that, everybody would sort of have to clamor around to get a spot to see if there's no bleachers or anything. So that would, of course, be a factor here as well. But everyone's sort of like shoving and pushing, trying to get the best view. Your character starts in the middle of this arena, so I think we want to describe the cage and his opponent in it earlier. How would you not see your opponent if they're in a cage across from you?
Maybe we could just pull it forward, like through the wall of people or
Yeah.
something, and then unleash him.
That's probably a good idea. Yeah, a big WWE entrance kind of thing. But yeah, it felt odd to me to only describe the cage that was across from him, which is a cage is see-through, and then we only see the opponent like halfway through the scene. I think that would probably want to place one. That would be one of the first things that you would place
Makes sense.
or have a mention.
And I guess,
go
is
ahead.
it clear that Enzo knocks himself out in the end?
Yeah, definitely. He
Okay.
whacks his own. Yeah, which I mean, I'm sure that could happen. Doing a headbutt probably hurts like hell. I've never headbutted anybody in my life.
I have several times,
Well, there you go. You would know then.
but I've never knocked myself unconscious, thankfully. I have been knocked out.
I hope not when you were 11. Getting a cage.
I think I've been injured. I don't think I've ever been knocked out when I was a kid, but I've had lots of injuries as a kid.
Goodness. Okay. Well, hopefully you've never been kidnapped and forced into a fight to the like a pit fight to the death at least.
No, but I did do some unsanctioned cage fighting when I lived in Tennessee.
Okay, you'll have to tell us more about that later. Let's wrap up for now. Hope that helps. Your interiority is good. The blocking needed some clarity.
All right, makes sense.
Alrighty. We are at the end of our time. Do we have any last questions before we wrap up for today? Okay, we'll wrap up then. We will have lab from 4 to 6, and we have action horror features tomorrow. from 11 to 1. Hope to see you guys there for those. Hope you all had a good scary Halloween.
Table reads at 6 p.m. Pacific.
Table reads today at 6 p.m., right?
Yeah, right after Writer's Lab. Mhm.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for coming by. We'll see you guys soon at your next Script Camp event. Have a good weekend.
Thanks.